at this time we would have a special council meeting, and I need a mover, a seconder, that be resolved that the agenda for the special council meeting held on August 24th, 2020 be confirmed as circulated. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Sainsbury, Councillor McClellan, all in favor? Thank you. The motion is that be resolved that the report of Min 2020-33 be received, and further that a bylaw be enacted amending the procedural bylaw 2016-020 to continue to allow for electronic participation by members of council in open and closed meeting until in-person meetings resume, and that members participating electronically count towards a quorum. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Jebb and Councillor Noyle. Any questions on the motion?
I have a question.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I understand that these are very unprecedented times, but I do feel the restrictions from the health unit report seems a little ridiculous, considering lots of us are gearing up to send our children back to school with little to no social distancing in place. I understand the 6-foot rule. It's basically everywhere we go now. What I don't understand is apparently for councils, it needs to be 12 feet. I just feel that if we can send our kids back to school, then we can make it work as a council in person at 6 feet. So I don't know if that's something we can ask the health unit to reconsider. I never had heard of this 12-foot rule until I read our report. It just seems extreme. I'd like to get back to chambers. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's just the last paragraph, the financial considerations, $180 per month for Zoom memberships. Does that include our committee meetings, or is this $180 just for council meetings in the budget?
I'll go to the clerk.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Councillor Sainsbury. That Zoom meeting membership is per month, so regardless as to what type or how many meetings we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. I'd just like to speak to, there's a section in here about proxy voting, and it says in there that the clerk would have to establish for a process for appointing. So this motion that we're passing is allowing the clerk to begin to establish that, or do we want to have that discussion of, I personally am not in favor of proxy voting, so I'd like to put it on the table to make sure that it actually is being directed to the clerk, or is the council want to take that up as a separate thought?
Okay. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Councillor Foster. At this point, the motion that's before Council right now is only pertaining to the electronic participation in meetings. We included the section with regard to proxy voting in the report in case Council should wish to provide some additional direction to staff, but at this point, it's only pertaining to electronic participation in the meetings.
Supplementary. Thank you. Through the mayor to the clerk. Thank you for the clarification. There's no reason to pursue it at this time. If it comes back up, it can be spoken at that time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Look for a mover and a seconder and be resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. That bylaw 2020-084, a bylaw to amend the bylaw of 2016-20, being the procedural bylaw to govern the proceeding of council. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Jebb and Councillor Noyle. All in favor? Carried. And at this time, be resolved that a bylaw 2020-085 to confirm the proceedings of the special council meeting on August 24, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time enacted. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Chab and Councillor Sainsbury. All in favor? Carried. And Councillor Chab.
Motion to adjourn, Your Worship, at 7:06 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. This time now we'll get into the council meeting. And if you would please rise and join me in singing a, oh, I'm sorry, we got to switch over here. I know we got 4 meetings tonight, so I'm kind of pushing everybody. Okay, well, please join me in singing of O Canada. Thank you. Would you please remain standing for a moment of sound reflection? If you would consider thinking of the Beatty family, the loss of their father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and our Councillor Beatty's grandfather of his passing. Thank you. All right then, Council. You already know we've got a big night ahead of us, and so we'll get on with it. Any awards of recognition at this time? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Mellon. Just a couple of quick things. On August the 8th, formerly known to all of us as the Potato Festival weekend, BIA had a street closure and they encouraged the merchants to be outside. You were there. I was there. The weather cooperated, and I think most people would say it was a certain feeling of normalcy had returned, if only for the day. So hats off to everybody who participated and everyone who came out. There was a good crowd, and there was a lot of social distancing and good mask wearing, as we all should. So that's one, if I could. And the second one is just another shout out to these pop-up patios. Weather has been absolutely great. So I would encourage anybody who has not been out to barbecue, DeGrazia or Kelly's Kitchen to get out and enjoy a drink on the patio. And for me personally, I'd love to see these lining the streets in all three towns in New Tecumseth. The reception has just been wonderful. So if anybody listening wants to open a restaurant in any of the 3 towns, I would certainly encourage you. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
As long as they invite you. Anyone else? This time I go to a clerk to identify items to add or delete from the agenda. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. There are no additions or deletions to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. A motion then be resolved that the agenda for the council meeting held on August 24th, 2020 be confirmed as circulated. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Harrison McIntyre and Councillor McClellan. Questions? All in favor? Thank you. This time I'll go, if you have a peculiar interest, you can claim it now or when the item comes up. Deputy Mayor Norcross.
That's okay, Your Worship. Thank you. I just want to declare on the council meetings from July 20th in reference to CW4, I believe was the item, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Deputy Mayor, you can stay in on the first half of the motion. Motion then be resolved at the minutes of the council meeting dated July 20, 2020 be adopted, circulated. Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor McClellan, all in favor? Thank you. Deputy Mayor, you have a conflict on this next motion.
Excuse me, Your Worship. The Deputy Mayor actually declared with regard to the council minutes rather than the special council minutes. Therefore, we would need a different mover for that first motion. I'm sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lacey, thank you. Motion then be resolved at the minutes of a special council meeting dated July 2020 be adopted, circulated. Mover and seconder, Councillor Jebb and Councillor Sainsbury. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I go to the clerk to identify items for separate discussion and the reasons thereof. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. Item D-1, Jane Sinclair, General Manager, Health and Emergency Services, County of Simcoe, Simcoe Manor Redevelopment Project, as this is a deputation. Item D-2, Kevin Meisner, Whistle Cessation at Third Line, CP Rail Crossing, as this is also a deputation. And item number 2, verbal report of the CAO, re-update on COVID-19, as this is a verbal report. Thank you.
Okay. I'll go to the council to identify items for separate discussion. Don't see any. All right, Madam Clerk, summarize all items identified for separate discussion.
Thank you, Worship. Item D-1, D-2, and item number 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion then be resolved that items of CW1 to CW5 on the Committee of the Whole meeting report dated July 20th, 2020, with the exceptions of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and a recommendation then therein be adopted. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, I better get a mover and second on first. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Noyle. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Do we have Jane in? Oh, there's. Welcome, Jane. Jane Sinclair from the General Manager and Health Emergency Service from the County of Simcoe, and she's going to give us on the Simcoe Manor Redevelopment Project. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. I'm very pleased to provide you with a brief presentation on our very exciting project, the Simcoe Manor Redevelopment Project. I have here with me Don Hipwell, who is our Director of Procurement, Fleet and Property, as well as Jerry Pilon. He's the principal for Salter Pilon Architecture Incorporated, and they're available for questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, we'll start into the presentation. Next slide, please. So as you can see in front of you, this is our recent rendering of the future of Simcoe Manor and Simcoe Village. I'll go through and talk about the various components throughout the presentation. And obviously all those trees aren't there right now, but it certainly will be a very large, exciting campus landscaped and just a wonderful place for our seniors to retire to. Next slide, please. So within our presentation, I'll give a little bit of background to the development of this project, talk a little bit about the property and our property acquisition. Then I'll just highlight some of the changes to our business case. with the property acquisition, talk about our capital financial plan, our operational plan for the campus, and then I'll go through the project design. Next slide, please. So to very quickly recap, back in 2018, we brought a report to County Council following a number of studies that we had completed on the existing Simcoe Manor and Simcoe Village facilities. We did a feasibility study on the actual building. As you may recall, Simcoe Manor was originally built in 1898, and some of the existing infrastructures there, the boiler room specifically. So it's really an aged facility. So we did some studies, and we also did a market analysis as well. And it really confirmed that there's not only growth in New Tecumseth, but there's a significant portion of your population that is seniors demographic, so 55 and older, pardon me. And so it really demonstrated a huge need for additional housing and services for seniors in your area. We also, at that time, based on the information that we obtained, we put forward a master plan to County Council. And at that time, we were proposing the redevelopment of the existing long-term care home and the supportive housing in a two-phased development. So looked at building the new portions, then moving the existing residents into the new buildings, demolishing the existing facilities, and then building the remaining portions. With the property acquisition, our plan has now changed somewhat. And so we'll be going forward with still a two-phase, but all of the construction elements that we originally proposed in the first phase. So doing the construction all at once. The master plan includes not only redeveloping Simcoe Manor, currently it's 126 long-term care beds. We put in an application back in 2018 to expand to add another another 34 beds to make 160 long-term care beds. And we've resubmitted that. We're anxiously waiting word from the province on that submission. We propose to redevelop the existing supportive housing. There's 32 units, and the existing adult day programming space that we partner with the Victorian Order of Nurses, and they provide a day program for seniors. And then in addition, we proposed a whole range of other types of housing and services for seniors. Next slide, please. So you can see this is a depiction of the property. And on the bottom left portion of the slide, you can see the existing Simcoe Manor and Simcoe Village. So on approximately 7.8 acres of property. We did acquire an additional just over 16 acres of land to the east and to the north of the property for a total of just under 30 acres, 28.4 acres, which is what we felt would be feasible to increase and house the amount of facilities that we are proposing. Next slide, please. So in the updated business case, once we confirmed the property acquisition, we took back a revised master plan and an updated business case to council. And as I mentioned, instead of phasing in a portion of the housing components, we actually recommended that we complete all of the construction at one time. Because we're to the east and to the north, we have ample property to build all the facilities without having to displace our residents currently and then move everyone in all in one sweep. So, and with our revised business case, by actually moving forward with the project in one construction phase, we estimate an approximate savings of about $4 million. So from savings from escalation and from other scheduling efficiencies, as well as the magnitude of the project all in one phase. And in terms of future growth, We also changed the actual presentation of the facility. So we've stacked a number of the housing components on each other. So we're looking at the long-term care, and I'll walk through the various components, but the long-term care being a 3-floor facility, and a couple of the other buildings being 6 floors. And by doing so, we're able to avail more space for future growth down the road, should there be, greater need for more seniors housing. In our existing campus continuum in Penetanguishene and Georgian Village, which this is modeled after. We purchased on 20.8 acres of land, and we packed it literally every square inch of the property. And so we've learned from that process that having some additional land available for future growth is prudent, particularly with the seniors demographic growth. And in terms of benefits for the property, for this whole project, certainly with moving from 126 long-term care beds to 160, right out of the gate, economies of scale, we anticipate just under $500,000 saving annually to the tax levy based on efficiencies of that operation of the long-term care home alone. And with all of the other housing components and the village square, which I'll talk a little bit about, it is all sustainable, similar to our Georgian model. So there is no tax-based support. The revenues generated from rent and purchasing of the life lease, et cetera, actually pays for the operations. And with this model, we anticipate being able to put approximately $1 million into reserves on an annual basis over and above our costs. And again, as we're a government organization, not for profit, those funds will be there for capital upgrades down the road when the windows, the doors need to be replaced. And those funds will also help to pay for some of the services that we offer. And in terms of jobs, we certainly saw huge success in our last development, Georgian Village. We're anticipating just under 60 new jobs. That's probably conservative. We know that our estimates with Georgian Village, we actually employed more individuals when we opened up. And you can see in terms of an economic development project, we anticipate with the direct funds for the new jobs and the indirect spend in the local communities, approximately an increase in about 8.4 million annually to the community. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through all this one. There's a lot of numbers on the slide, but this is our financial plan. So we did a pro forma for our operations, and this is our capital, the capital side of the equation. You can see on the left side of the table the various housing components, our cost estimates, and eligible funding. And at this point in time, we anticipate we will secure approximately 62% of all the capital cost of this project. And I can tell you, we will continue to look at any and all opportunities for additional funding over and above. And you can see there's various components that from our funding, everything from the Ministry of Long-Term Care to we have some reserve funds targeted for this redevelopment. We'll be looking at a significant capital fundraising program. I think we were approximately 1%. Our previous, we're estimating about a 2% amount, 3.6 million. We currently have over 800,000 in donations towards that capital campaign. So I can tell you, you'll hear lots more about that as we go forward with the project. Next slide, please. So this is on the operational side. And again, there's a lot of numbers on the screen, but I think the biggest takeaway for us is we developed financial plans, budgets for each of the different housing components, the village square, et cetera, et cetera. And as I mentioned, you can see it circled near the bottom of the screen, the 978. So that is the additional revenues over our expenditures that will be targeted into reserve accounts on an annual basis that, as I mentioned, will be available to support the sustainability of both the capital and the operational program. Next slide, please. So this is where it gets exciting. We get into the diagrams, and you can actually see the campus come to life. So again, this is another rendering of the village. Next slide, please. And this gives you an overview, and I'm going to walk through each of the respective areas very quickly in the next couple of slides. But you can see, with the 28.4 acres, we have a number of buildings more in the center, and along the top, the northern part of the property, you can see some housing along the top as well. The grayed areas are parking areas, and that number 2 box, it's kind of right smack dab in the center. Is the village square, and really that's what this whole concept centers around. So all these buildings are attached. There's links that people can actually, without having to go outside, can walk down these links and enter into this village square. And the village square is really a community inside of a larger community. So we'll look to have restaurant and different service provisions. So currently in our other village, we have a lab, we have a doctor's office, we have a hearing clinic, a beauty salon, we have a fitness center, greenhouse, we have a woodworking shop. So we have a small library branch. We really try to put as many different amenities in that center core. And the concept is really one-stop shopping. So as people get older and they live on the campus, they don't have to go anywhere. They can literally get everything to suit their needs right on campus. And the other beauty of this concept is it's not just for the people living on the campus. The amenities are built such that they're open to people living in the surrounding communities. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick breakdown of the various components. So you can see the bottom right of your screen, there's some pink squares with a number 1, and that's the long-term care home. That's the largest building, of course, and it's being built to 160 beds, subject to approval from the Ministry of Long-Term Care on those additional beds. And then you can see again to the left that beige colored number 2, that's the village square that I talked about. Number 3 it's actually a link. So it's a passageway into building 4. And so building 4 is a combination. So we'll have the existing 32 supportive housing units in that building. And then we'll also have an additional 32 affordable housing units. And as I mentioned, they will be stacked. So there'll be about 6 levels to that building. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, if you look at numbers 5 and 6, similarly, number 5 is a link. It's a passageway, and they're fairly wide. So they're built intentionally that way so that we can also have amenities along these links. So if there's retail, different types of health services, et cetera, they will be able to provide those services theoretically in the links as well, so that we can have as many services as possible for the folks living on site. And then when you go into building number 6, that's a combination of life lease and market rentals. There's 40 units targeted, so roughly half and half. And life lease, for those that aren't familiar, is really, they're similar to condominiums, but they're age specific. So in this case, 60 years of age and older is the target age that we've set. And the market rentals, we found with the last development, there was a huge demand for seniors looking for, a bit larger, nice apartment suites. So there's a combination of those. And then in addition, we have 40 units that are retirement living, so retirement home style. So they will have really the next level to long-term care, 24/7 staff, nursing staff, personal support workers, et cetera. They'll have all their meals, there'll be programming, et cetera. And then if you follow, I'm going to get a little bit out of order, but I'm going to go to the left of your slide. You can see a number 21. And that's co-housing. I like to call it the Golden Girls model. We haven't built this yet, but it's a single dwelling. And it has a number of separate individual bedrooms with their own bathrooms, but then there's shared amenity space, so kitchen, living space, et cetera. And these are becoming more and more popular. They're affordable for individuals. And then because they share a common spaces, they can afford typically to have assistance with meal preparation or keeping the home clean, some social programming support services as well. So we're really excited about this new model. And we're anticipating about 9 bedrooms. So 9 residents could potentially live in that facility. Then when you look at the top of the screen and you see the numbers ranging from 7 to 18, so those are our garden homes. And we have 12 garden homes, and they're a life lease model as well. So they purchase those like a condominium. We maintain the grounds, clean the windows, shovel the snow, cut the grass, all those nasty things most of us don't like to do. And they maintain the inside of the homes. Then immediately to the right at the top of the screen, you see a box that's numbered 19, and then you see another box below it that's numbered 20. Those are townhomes. And again, so the garden homes are individual dwellings. These are townhomes, so semi-detached. And we found through the market study that there's a demand for this type of housing as well. So this will be a new type of housing that we're adding to the whole suite or the continuum of housing. And I think we'll move, that's it for those housing components. We'll move to the next slide. So this last section, 22, 23, and 24 is for future growth. So there will not be buildings built as part of this construction piece. But as I mentioned earlier, we thought it prudent with the population growth, with the aging demographic, to have space available should we, or should you and County Council wish to build more housing at some point in the future. We actually have space available for that. Next slide, please. So this just brings us to the recommendations, and I'm extremely pleased to advise you that County Council approved and has been extremely supportive of this project. They recognize the increase in our aging population. We've had tremendous success with the last redevelopment, Georgian Village. It's been fully occupied, and we've really seen some wonderful feedback from the residents that live there. Because this village concept has that one-stop shopping, as people get older and their needs change, we're able to offer them those services. So each of the buildings have different levels of services offered, but we have a suite of services. So if someone wants to purchase a meal plan, or they need cleaning services for their unit, or they need some nursing care or personal assistance of some sort, we have the staffing who work there that are available, and then we can easily provide those services. And I can tell you, it's great partnerships with the local community in terms of having other types of services available. I've already been contacted by an individual who operates a physiotherapy services and is interested. So we're very, very excited as we go forward. At this point in time, Council has approved the project. The only thing that we're waiting for is to get approval from the Ministry of Long-Term Care for those additional 34 beds. And as I mentioned, we applied originally in 2018. With the new government, the change in government, we reapplied as per their direction in early this year. And I can tell you we probably touch base with our office every week. We're on a first name basis. So hopefully with COVID, things did slow down, understandably so. But we're hopeful that we'll hear some good news in the near future. And behind the scenes, I mentioned Jerry Pilon is with us this evening. His team and Dawn Hipwell and her folks are working away at the design. So they're continuing to go forward with more detailed designs so that when we do get the green light, we're ready to go. And I know we've had a number of meetings with the staff from the town of New Tecumseth as well, and that's been very positive, and we certainly appreciate so much all the support that we've had. So we're trying to line up everything as quickly as possible so that when we get the approval, we can go forward. So I think I'll stop there. The project, we estimate it'll be probably 24 months to 30 months. It's a very big development, but we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks very much for your time.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane. And as some of you know, Jane, she's very enthusiastic, and she gets up there at the county council, and I know Councillor Norcross and I, she just sells the idea, and she's very positive, and had a great staff to us up there, and I just want to thank you, Jane, and thank Dawn Hippo and Jerry for coming out tonight. I'll start with the questions. I believe the Deputy Mayor had a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to tag on to what you just said and thank the General Manager very much. This type of development is so desperately needed in our community. And General Manager, I know you've spent many, many, many years working on this. As the Mayor and I have probably for over a decade now have been advocating to get this type of facility. So I wanted to say thank you. It's definitely been a priority to get our seniors housing going and bringing it together, and hopefully we can expand on it. And as we go forward, my one question, GM, is, I want to thank you so much, but I've already had people sending me messages on how to get on the wait list or how to apply for this new facility. I think Councillor Sainsbury is putting her hand up right now.
Wow.
I've had it, and people are so excited. They're so excited about the concept and the fact that it accommodates everybody. And you also have services for people that don't live there. People can visit their friends. So when I get these requests on how to get their name on the list, what would you like me to do? Or where should I send them?
They have to stand behind me. The line starts behind me. Jane, sorry.
Thank you for those kind words, and that's great feedback. So send them to me.
Okay.
We'll have someone dedicated to this in future, but send them to me. I'll make sure we get them on the list. They'll be right at the top of the list. That's very exciting.
Thank you so much, GM.
Welcome.
Councillor Jebb, and then Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you. And thank you to General Manager Sinclair. When I heard about it during the last term, I was thinking, geez, when do I get on this list? Because it sounds nice. But I've had the same questions too. How do I get on this list? But the question I have is, when are you planning to start the construction? Because you're saying 24 months, and when would it be done? Or when would it be started? Sorry.
Jane?
So, thank you for that question. I'll ask Dawn Hipple to talk a little bit about the construction. As I mentioned, they're doing all the detailed design drawings right now, and we need approval. The thing with the Ministry of Long-Term Care funding, if we proceed with the development before we get approval for the funding, we will deem ourselves ineligible. So this is one of those hurry up and wait situations. So that will be the test. I can tell you, you'll hear it far and wide once we do get the approval. But Dawn, maybe you could speak, Dawn Hipwell, a little bit just about the construction, what we anticipate gearing up towards.
Dawn?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, I can. We are right now working with Jerry and the operational folks, determining the design for each of the buildings as well as the site. So these are detailed meetings where we review all the needs of the various areas, as well as looking at some of the lessons learned through Georgian Village, our Georgian Village experience. So we are moving fairly quickly, and I believe that our goal is to have a design finished by the end of this year in concept, and then we would be moving ahead to do those detailed drawings, which would be next year, and would take up the majority of that year, with a plan to go to tender in the fall of 2021 and start construction in early 2022. We would hopefully be, as we said, a 2-year schedule and be in the building by the beginning of 2024. So that's sort of the plan at this point. And we don't really see any barriers in that regard. The exception to that is, of course, we need to get that ministry approval. So we're waiting on that.
Thank you very much, Don. Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Jane and Don. I am the senior member of council, so if there's a pecking order, I am definitely the oldest. So I get in before Deputy Mayor. Secondly, I have some questions. I'm not sure who wants to answer them. Is this a development charge applicable project? I have 3 or 4 questions actually related to the concept itself.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. And secondly, are all the lands within the urban settlement boundary of Beaton, or are some outside the boundary?
Jane?
So I might ask Don to speak to it. The existing property obviously is in the settlement lands, and I believe because it's an expansion to the north and to the east, it will be considered. But I know we've had numerous conversations with the town on this.
Okay.
So I'd like Don to comment.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'm not sure if we can bring back slide 5, but in answer to the question specifically, yes, the existing manor is within the settlement boundary, as are the 4 acres to the west of the site. The new lands that we've purchased are not, and we have been in discussions, extensive discussions with the town on this, as has Mr. Pilon and his team and our planning folks. So I'm not sure if I could hand it over to Jerry to give an update on that to Mr. Pilon.
Thanks, Don. Through you, Your Worship, and to members of council, the discussions with planning have gone well. And to answer the questions to Don's point and Jane's point, correct. The new lands are not within the boundary, but because of the way in which we are developing and its consistent institutional project development, that we see no reason why the lands can't be developed in accordance with that. We are currently working on planning and zoning drawings concurrent with your planning department to look at what the implications are in doing that. But as our understanding is that as we move forward, that they see no impediments with the development moving forward based on our approach with the existing lands and merging with the new lands that have been acquired for the purpose of this development. So we see nothing that should stand in our way to do that.
My last question, Your Worship, is related to the sewer and water capacity. Because of the Collingwood pipeline discussions related to future water, this will take 24 months or longer to do, so we should hopefully have all the other issues resolved by then. I hope.
So I know, again, we have had some extensive, and we continue with discussions with staff from the town around those issues as well, to ensure we have, everything in place that will support this development. So again, we'll continue with those discussions.
My last question was related to the fundraising. 3.6, you say you have $800,000, I believe, which is great. If everybody would give that, we could just have them send the check to Jane Sinclair. But because we're fundraising for the hospital, and because we've had COVID-19, it's kind of put a Matthews House hospice behind a bit with their fundraising and that sort of thing. So as long as you coordinate all the things we're trying to achieve, because fewer numbers are eligible to be in facilities unless something changes to a stage 4, perhaps with the province, that we can have larger numbers for functions to fundraise. So that was my last point. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments. Certainly, it is not business as usual with COVID right now. So we'll continue to look at this, and we do know the pandemic at some point will be over. And so at that point, I think we'll have a better opportunity to really do some significant fundraising. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else has a question? Councillor? All right, I just want to, anybody, just on council, those that are watching us from the public and that, if you have a chance, go up and see Georgian Village in Penetang-Machine. It's a beautiful resort up there, and that's what Jane and her staff is trying to do is bring that down to New Tecumseth, and it's as Jane said, it's going to be bigger than the Penetang-Machine. So, council and audience, take the time and go up to and visit Georgian Village and see what we're getting. I want to thank Jane and Dawn and Jerry for taking the time to come down here. I want to thank the Deputy Mayor for setting us up. And now I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that the deputation of Jane Sinclair, General Manager, Health and Emergency Service of County of Simcoe, be received. Any questions? All in favor? Great. Once again, thanks very much, Jane.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye for now.
Okay, our next speaker. Are we ready to go, Pam? Okay. Our next speaker is Kevin Meisner. And Kevin, are you? Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My deputation today is regarding a whistle cessation being brought to Third Line Crossing, the CP rail crossing in Tottenham. I'm here representing the Deer Springs community that live nearby this crossing. So this is my presentation on this. If you could just go to the next slide, please. So the CP rail crossing at Third Line is causing serious impacts to the quality of life for the residents of Deer Springs due to the whistle blowing at night. On average, this intersection sees about 10 trains a day, with most occurring at night and early morning. Trains must blow 4 times, 2 long, 1 short, and 1 long times starting at least a quarter mile out from the crossing. This final horn must be held until the train is fully occupied the crossing. This railway travels behind the people's backyards, specifically on Casterly Crescent in this community, at some points as close as 100 feet to their house. Due to its proximity to the crossing, conductors must blow the horn while traveling behind the houses. Residents as far as Martin Trail, Donnan Drive, and Jenkins in this community can hear the train whistle and are woken by it on most nights. In nearby houses, the bedrooms can register a 90 decibel reading when the trains blow their horns. A comparable sound is the equivalent to standing next to a running lawnmower. This can damage hearing if exposed for long periods of time as well. As can be expected, this is causing a lack of sleep, stress, and anxiety for the residents living in this part of the community. For the health impacts related to sleep, a lack of sleep, you can have issues such as high blood pressure, diabetes, heart attack, heart failure, and stroke. Being woken up repeatedly in the night without reaching REM sleep can lead to numerous health issues such as obesity, immunity impairment, lower libido. Furthermore, a lack of sleep in children can lead to difficulty with learning and increased depression and anxiety. Over half the families living in this community have children living in the home. So here's some examples of communities that have put whistle cessations in place. I just wanted to point out some other ones that are even on the same rail line as this one. So for some examples, there are 6 crossings in Woodbridge and Kleinburg, Vaughan, that on the CP rail, which is the same line, that have whistle cessations in place. There are 2 overnight whistle cessations in crossings in Bolton, which is also on the same line as well. And another example is 13 in Markham on the Metrolinx line. Many of the crossings listed above are also not even half as close to nearby houses as the crossing on Third Line is to the community in Tottenham. In these whistle cessations that have been put in place, accidents have not increased since, and this includes obviously putting up arms, whistles, bells, and safety procedures at these crossings in order to be able to implement these changes. So for the community, this is causing a huge concern, as I've mentioned. As part of this presentation, I've put together an online and in-person petition, and I've gained, since I submitted this presentation, we've had almost 200 signatures from the community by concerned residents who are directly affected by the horn. On the next slide, I have some examples of things that I've actually got from speaking to the community and going door to door. One resident, this was really troubling for me to hear specifically, but one resident must take sleeping pills in order to sleep every night. Since she's so close to the crossing, she can't sleep at all. Wakes her up every hour. One resident sleeps very little through the night, with the horn waking her every hour. She's terrified about getting behind the wheel without a full night's rest and worries about the possibility of falling asleep while driving to her job the next morning. Numerous residents say their children can't sleep at night. Babies wake up every time the train passes and are generally miserable and cannot stand living here anymore. Numerous residents are either planning on moving away from the community or putting up the for sale sign and moving out shortly. One resident is a grade 1 teacher at a school in Maple. She's terrified about the prospect of driving on the highway to her job and teaching young children on 1 hour of daily sleep. Some closing remarks on this. The overnight train needs to stop in order for this community to continue and to give the people a chance to have a fully productive and healthy life. Crossing arms, lights, and bells were recently installed at the crossing, fulfilling the required hardware for a quiet zone. Numerous communities have put in quiet zones at their crossings with little impact to safety and a huge impact to the quality of life for the residents. I plead with council to please go forward with a motion to place either a complete or overnight whistle cessation at this crossing. We must look after the residents in the community, ensure they're happy and love living here. When people are so unhappy, they're selling and leaving after only a year, since these are newer houses, forced to take sleeping pills to sleep through the night, and have children and babies waking at all hours of the night, something must be done. I plead with council to think of the children and the families of this community. Numerous households in this area are either first-time homebuyers or young families who are trying to lay their roots down in Tottenham. They are miserable and wish they never moved here. That is not the type of life we want for the people here. We have to ensure that they are happy and have a community free of overnight noise pollution so they can sleep and be productive members of society. And on my final slide here, I've attached my petition with 85 signatures. And I also have an online petition that's reached over 100, and that's the link for it there. And that's the end of my petition. Thank you again for letting me speak on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. Just before you go, any questions from council to Kevin? Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondered about liability insurance. Did Markham and Vaughan and so on have riders or something on their insurance policy if we do this? And there happens to be an incident?
I believe, yeah, they had to get increase their insurance to be able to go forward with the motion.
Okay. Yeah. So that's something we could look into, because this meeting, we have some time, I think, to do that.
Okay.
Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank Kevin and all the residents for bringing their concerns forward to us. I can relate to, I just want to say that I think all of us as parents and as owners of homes feel your pain and how difficult this has been for everyone. And so, you know, I think that what we probably want to do is look into this and see, you know, what the costs will be for the town, and see how we can move forward with this.
Good, thank you. Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Meisner, I really appreciate your presentation. I think it was very well put together. I understand your concerns. However, there's two other crossings right in the middle of town that don't have barriers in front of them right now.
Right.
And by stopping the whistle at the third line, I don't think you're going to get the difference that you believe that will happen, because we still have to blow that whistle at the other crossings, or quarter of a mile before, which are right behind yours. So until we actually have all of the crossings in Tottenham with barriers and that, I wouldn't even envision looking into stopping the cessation of the third line. I apologize, but it's too much of a safety concern for the other residents of the town as well.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I know this came forward a couple of years ago, and staff had prepared a report that was presented to council. Councillor Lacey brought up a valid point that we still don't have the controlled crossings at the 4th and the 5th, so I assume the train would still have to blow there. If it pleases council, I would direct staff to bring that report back and modify it if things have changed, so council can have a better understanding going forward, Your Worship.
Thank you. I believe that's what Councillor Harrison McIntyre is requesting. Correct me if I'm wrong. Councillor Harrison McIntyre?
Thank you, Your Worship. That's correct. And then if we can integrate the point that was brought up by Councillor Lacey to find out when arms will be installed. I think that the residents who live in that area are wanting arms put in as well. And for the safety of the high school kids, I'm sure we want to see them down at the 5th. So if there's a timeline on those arms going in the other intersections, that'd be great. That could be integrated into the report.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else? So I see the clerk is writing the motion down, and I believe that what council wants to. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. Be it resolved that the deputation of Kevin Meisner be received, and further that staff be directed to bring back and or update the previous report of staff with regard to the whistle cessation at Third Line CP rail crossing.
Councillor Harrison McIntyre, is that what you wanted? Yes, okay. Moved by Councillor Harrison McIntyre and second by Councillor Lacey. Any further discussions? Councillor Jebb? Nope. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, so Kevin, just to briefly tell you what happened there was that the councillors has referred it back to staff to do a report and come back to council. You'll be notified when the report and when it comes back to council. And of course, you'll have input in the report too.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kevin, for coming out and for doing all the footwork on that.
All right, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
At this time, then I'll go to the verbal report from the CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, and good evening to Mayor Milne, Deputy Mayor Norcross, and members of council. It seems like it's been quite some time since I had an opportunity to speak to council with respect to the ongoing issues that we've been facing. So there's I will try and keep my update as brief as possible, but there is a number of things that I'd like to speak to council about. So to start off, our administration center is open again to the public, and some walk-in services are available through our customer service team, including things like dog licenses, parking permits, garbage tags and bins, payment of parking tickets, and death certificates. For some services, however, appointments are required. These include discussing a project with town staff, application or permit with our building or planning departments, marriage license, pickup, tow truck licenses, freedom of information, pickup or drop off of documents. And this approach seems to be working well, as we do see our residents attending town hall if required and making appointments when as needed. And really this approach has been detailed out and communicated out to our residents and our public, and people are accepting of it and are working well with it. So that's working well. So far, we've had anywhere from 18 to 40 people coming through the admin center over the course of a day. It's been varying, but again, everyone has been extremely understanding and cooperative of the need to do certain things and abide by certain instructions and restrictions. So Notwithstanding that we are open to the public, we continue to encourage our residents to use technology and online options wherever possible. We have reserved Monday through Friday between 11 and 12 to invite seniors or those with autoimmune compromised health or those with special requirements to attend the administration center for in-person services if necessary, and we'll certainly accommodate those folks and do all we can to assist them. We've made a few changes to the access and security of the administration center. Queuing and physical distancing displays are on the floor or the front lobby and out onto the south sidewalk to be used if necessary. The south door, that's the door facing Wellington Street, is now our entrance door, and the north door is to be used for exiting. We have added a temporary accessible parking to one of the on-street parking spots on the south side of the building for residents to use. And we are working on adding accessible push buttons to open the doors on the south side of the building. But in the meantime, should someone need any assistance, then our staff are readily available to provide that assistance. Our Joint Operations Center is open to the public by appointment only. Currently there is no walk-in customer service available at the JOC at this time. Everyone entering all town buildings and facilities must always wear a face covering or a mask and practice safe physical distancing of at least 2 meters, wash or sanitize their hands frequently, including immediately upon entering town buildings, and follow all directional movement requirements and do not enter any building if they're not feeling well. At the start of the pandemic, recognizing that many people would be staying safe at home and are working from home, our bylaw officers relaxed the enforcement of the town's 5-hour parking restriction. Starting after Labor Day, however, we will once again be actively enforcing that 5-hour parking restriction on a complaint basis on all streets throughout the town. The Ontario government, in consideration of our Parks, Recreation and Culture areas, the Ontario government announced easing restrictions for our facilities that rent out professional meeting and event spaces. And as of August 21st, facilities can have up to 50 guests for each indoor meeting room or event space within the facility. However, the facility would have to adhere to a plan approved by the Office of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. And our Parks, Recreation and Culture team are working with area municipalities to create consistent plans for the new Tecumseth Recreation Center, as well as the Tottenham Community and Fitness Center that would then be submitted to the Chief Medical Officer of Health for further discussion. Our recreation centers and arenas are open, and we are seeing user groups booking rental space in these facilities, which is fantastic. It is the permit holder's responsibility, however, to ensure all public health directives are followed when using our facilities, and staff are continuing to work with these groups to ensure numbers and all provincial directives and public health restrictions are being adhered to, and that's for everyone's safety. We are continuing to see bookings at the fitness center, at the Tottenham Community and Fitness Center, as well as bookings to use the walking tracks at both the Tottenham Center and the new Tecumseth Rec Center. Use is increasing week by week since opening. The Tottenham Community Fitness Center saw 192 users come through the space and has increased to 407 for week 2. So that's fantastic that our residents are now able to access those spaces. But I would like to remind council and members of the public that the fitness center at the NTRC is still currently closed and will not open in the near future. Our Parks, Recreation and Culture team are working towards bringing organized group fitness classes with reduced numbers back to our members and the public, starting this week, the week of August 24th, for drop-in classes with fitness classes to follow. We completed a user survey to ensure class offerings are aligned with what our users are comfortable with, which was fantastic. Staff are preparing the ice surfaces for user groups. The ice pad is in and ready at pad 1 in the new Tecumseth Recreation Center, with others to follow throughout the month of September as we continue to work with our user groups on their needs. Our sports fields are open and being utilized by organizations and individuals, and we have seen great use in our Tottenham Conservation Area this summer with both day visitors and overnight campers. In consideration of economic development and support of our local businesses, the town will be launching a Support Local marketing campaign this week, encouraging residents to make it new tech when they look to shop, dine, or unwind, and to do so in a safe and responsible manner. Residents will be encouraged to share their favorite places to safely shop, eat, and visit by posting photos of COVID-safe local activities, purchases from local stores, and meals at their favorite restaurants. So, Councillor Foster, if you're out on one of those patios, we're happy to see you on our website. Speaking of our temporary restaurant patios program, there's 3 patios have been installed as part of the program, being operated in partnership with the Alliston Business Improvement Association. 8 permits have been issued through the program implemented to assist restaurants wishing to operate a temporary seasonal patio on private property. There is currently 1 application going through the review process, and another 8 establishments have expressed an interest in participating in the program, but have yet to submit a complete application package. So we've seen a tremendous response to both the bump out patios as well as the private property patios, and that's fantastic. And hope certainly that we have a good while left of good weather to enjoy them. There is the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, which is administered by the South Simcoe region for our partners at Nottawasaga Futures. This provides interest-free loans of up to $40,000 to help support small and medium-sized enterprises that have had revenues affected by the pandemic and were unable to access support through other COVID-19 response programs. Nottawasaga Futures has reported that its entire allocation of just under $995,000 has now been dispersed, and of the 30 businesses in the organization's catchment that were approved for loans through this program, 12 are based in New Tecumseth. That equates to about 55 full-time equivalent jobs that were maintained or created as a result of the 30 loans that were approved for South Simcoe businesses. So that program has been extremely successful. The Nottawasaga Futures also offers a business consulting program to provide consulting services to business owners and entrepreneurs free of charge through its Business Excellence Center, which the town assists through annual funding. Also in support of our economic development activities, there's a weekly teleconference, which I believe some of you participate in, with business organization staff and board members and council representatives on those boards. MPP Jim Wilson and MP Terry Dowdle have accommodated it in their schedule, and certainly are welcome addition to our business community as that weekly update continues. We're also working in conjunction with Stevenson Memorial Hospital in regarding to the functioning of their assessment center, as we've seen increased usage of that center over the last little while, and anticipating even further increase as the coming couple of months with school returning and things like that. So we will continue to work in conjunction with the folks at Stevenson to ensure that whatever we can do to assist their assessment center and how it functions, we can do. In regards to our capital planning projects, all our capital projects are now moving forward. However, as a result of the pandemic and various delays that were associated with the last few months, some projects will obviously be extended into 2021, but our staff are actively working on as many projects as they can to continue to move that plan forward. At this point in time, Mayor Milne, I'll ask Ms. Bedford to provide a brief synopsis of some of the financial information, and then I'll wrap up with a couple of closing thoughts.
Thank you very much, CEO. This time I ask Ms. Bedford, you're mute, Laurie.
Oh, hello. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'd like to take this opportunity to give Council and our viewers a summary of our positive financial forecast in the face of COVID, and just mention some of the assumptions that were used to come up with this forecast. This is the result, this financial situation is the result of the community efforts, council efforts, and staff efforts, all to work cooperatively in the effort of keeping the town of New Tecumseth on track. So you will find the details to this very preliminary summary in Committee of the Whole report later on this evening under Financial 2020-21 report. So next slide. So we are forecasting to the end of the year a town surplus of $1.3 million, a water wastewater surplus of $0.8 million, for a total surplus of $2.1 million. Next slide, please. Some of the highlights I'd like to point out, and some of the assumptions that we've made, is that at this point in time, most staff have returned to work. There are a few additional staff that we assume or that we anticipate coming back during the month of September. Also, I think as the CAO pointed out, most recreation programs will be returning by Q3. Hockey is and ice rental is scheduled to be at almost an 80% factor to what we originally budgeted. There are a few additional staffing positions required for extra cleaning and monitoring, and we're doing that to make sure that all of the residents and the users of all our facilities feel very comfortable in the face of coming in and visiting with us and using our services. I'd also like to point out on a positive note as well, that the province has made available to us a one-time funding source of $943,000 to support COVID expenses. So we anticipate using some portion of that, but anything we haven't used by the end of 2020 will be put into a reserve to be used in the following year, 2021. All of it must be spent on COVID-related expenses. But as I previously mentioned, there are some additional staff that we will be leveraging during this period of time. I'd also like to point out that some of the surplus has been generated because the use of some of our programs has been restricted. And one of the examples is the transportation program. We are forecasting, though, in the last half of the year to slowly return to sort of an original transportation level as to what we had planned in the budget. Next slide, please. Also, the surpluses were generated because there was a reduced use of fire services in the first half of the year, but we are already seeing some of the fire calls resuming to what we would normally have anticipated during the year. But the next point, I'd like to really say this was a collaborative effort, and we really have to thank our residents for, even though given the opportunity to defer their payments of taxes, we at this point have collected 92.6% of our property taxes, and that's compared to 91.1% that we collected in 2019. So during this COVID period, our residents have stepped up to the plate and actually paid in a prompt fashion. And without this funding, we wouldn't be able to offer the services at the level that we are now offering them. So we are very appreciative of all the efforts made by all the residents. And as our CAO also pointed out, our capital program has resumed with some project delays. However, no capital projects are anticipated not being continued during the next months. Next slide, please. There are also some surpluses that were generated in that 2.1 million from non-COVID related items. So we had some hiring delays that were indicated right from the beginning of the year. And also we've had some fairly large turnover in some staff that have generated surpluses as well. Another area where we're seeing a surplus is a reduction in the water supply charges as compared to what was generally budgeted. And that's due to the maximum use of water not being required. So in the future, we will be changing our budget to more closely reflect the actual use of our water from Collingwood. And also there were some savings in contracted services. So services that we've already completed, there were some opportunities for some savings there. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to give you a summary. And as I said, the details are in the Committee of the Whole report referred to as the Q2 results. So thank you, Councillor, the councillors and the warden, the deputy warden. Sorry, I must have been listening to Jane too long. You're the deputy mayor in our council. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks very much for the good news. I'll go back to the CAO for a wind up.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. It's a little hard to believe sometimes that we've been at this for over 5 months now, and we certainly have a ways to go. However, at this time, I would like to, further to what Ms. Bedford said, thank all of our residents and our businesses for their cooperation, their understanding, and working with us. They've been fantastic. Literally every step of the way. I'd also like to thank all the members of council for their ongoing support. It's certainly something that we value greatly, and certainly like to express my sincere thanks to the mayor and deputy mayor. They've been extremely supportive through all of this and willing to take my phone calls at any hour of the day and night. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your ongoing support. All of our staff for their efforts. They've worked with us tremendously throughout the entire thing, and especially the emergency control group. for their unwavering dedication and commitment. They've been fantastic. So in closing, I'd just like to remind everyone that it continues to be essential that we continue to work together and remain diligent with following all health restrictions and instructions, especially as certain things start to open up over the next little while, as school starts to return. Those risks we have to continue to mitigate, and anything that we can do, obviously, to help mitigate those risks would be is greatly needed at this point. I would also like to encourage everyone to subscribe to the town's website and follow our social media channels to get accurate and timely information. And with that, Mayor Milne, I turn things back to you and be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Noel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to direct this question to our CAO. A lot of arenas in our area make the players rest outside in the parking lot. Are we going to enforce that rule? Because after a good game of hockey, I believe they're entitled to the showers or whatever the case may be. So my question is, are we going to enforce this rule?
CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Actually, I would ask Mr. Burton, our Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture. He's been working with local health officials on what those plans will look like as we return to play. So I would ask Mr. Burton to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Burton.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Milne, to Councillor Noy. In relation to what you're seeing currently, that's based on the OHF, the Ontario Hockey Federation's return to play guidelines. They're indicating currently to all their members to restrict the use of change room facilities and to have them dress outside in advance of entering the building. And then the facilities are offering spaces to don their skates, helmets, and gloves, and then access the ice surface. As things progress to the next phase and what we are currently planning and discussing with the local minor hockey associations is to allow use of the dressing room with restrictions in terms of the number of patrons, excuse me, the donning of a mask until such time that they're prepared to put their helmets on to enter the ice surface, and also restrict the use of showers within those spaces. So we're following a lot of the public health guidelines in addition to the Ontario Hockey Federation's return to play guidelines as well for that perspective.
Good. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the CAO. Lori mentioned 92.6% of taxes were collected. I believe Alison Stumple's report on Committee of the Whole will speak to some of the issues as well with the year-end review. Can we utilize any of the funds that we're giving to top up the ones, because we delayed the timing? That was one reason we had less in the bank to collect interest. Interest was low, so there was a shortfall for that reason. Can that loss that's in the committee report be made up with the $943,000?
CAO?
Mayor Milne, through you to Councillor Sainsbury. No, I don't believe so. The $943,000, we are still obviously working with the province to understand all the specifics around it, but those are actually for costs that you've incurred, not losses in investment income.
Okay, my second question, Your Worship, supplementary. We're having problems in all of Ontario with insurance on condominiums. One is distance to the fire hall. One is so much happening around the whole world with climate change and with all of the riots that are taking place in different parts of the world. So the Lloyd's of London type insurers are having a terrible problem. So they have doubled. Some of the increases in insurance are as high as 115% over last year. So I was just wondering about Station 4. As soon as we have that, it's going to make a big difference to our insurance rates, according to the insurance company. So I just wondered where we're at. Are we going to waste a whole year? Because they're doing the pipe to Tottenham. There's lots of other construction projects going on. So will we be starting that project to some degree?
Director CAO.
Mayor Milne, through you to Councillor Sainsbury. Again, Director Burton is overseeing the construction of that project, and he would have certainly more details on the anticipated schedule going forward.
Director Burton.
Through you, Mayor Milne, to Councillor Sainsbury. in relation to the Station 4 project, we had retained our consultants early on in February of 2019 and began the design process for that project. Earlier this year, we received a 90% design cost estimate, at which time we saw several price escalation increases as a result of the COVID impacts on the marketplace. And what was going on in late February, early March is when we received that cost estimate from the costing consultant. So at that time, we decided to pause the project as a result of everything that was going on and the uncertainties in the construction sector and the pricing market. We have now since re-engaged the consultant and re-engaged the cost consultant on that project to provide an updated cost estimate to us to act sort of as a pre-tender costing, at which time, once the results are received, we would proceed with a report to council to advise on that cost escalation increase, and then proceed with tendering this fall, with construction being approximately a 12 to 14-month construction period.
I thought maybe they'd be anxious for work due to lack thereof during COVID-19, that the prices might be a little better. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Your Worship. In regards to the $19,000 for transit, is that allowed to be used for new transit projects, or does that have to go to transit that we already had existing during the COVID to subsidize any losses?
Mayor Milne, through you to Deputy Mayor Norcross. That's an excellent question, Deputy Mayor, and we're actually following up with the province now to understand that a little bit better, because as council is aware, New Tecumseth currently is a little bit of a different type of transit service with our subsidized taxi provision. So my understanding at this point is it's more towards current transit, but it might be able to be used towards future transit as long as it's COVID related costs. So if we had to modify something from our original plan with respect to because of a COVID related cost or issue, then we might be able to implement or use those costs for that implementation.
So it has to be COVID related then. We can agree on that it's COVID. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. CEO, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I look for a mover and second, and be resolved that the verbal report of the CAO be received. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Noah, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, a motion on that the result that the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Bylaw 2020-086, bylaw 2020-087. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Jebb and Councillor Foster, all questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Public notice, we do have a public meeting this Wednesday at 7 p.m. and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be conducted using Zoom video conference. You're welcome to review the agenda on the town website. A motion mover be resolved in a bylaw 2020-088 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting on August 24, 2020, to be read a first, second, and third time enacted. Moved by Councillor Jebb and seconder, Councillor McClellan. Questions? Councillor Jebb?
No, sorry.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor Jebb.
Your Worship, I make the motion. Whoops, sorry. There we go. Also, I forgot to add in the general information announcements before the public notice that the mayor and I attended by virtual attendance the AMO conference. And this year, the Woman of Influence in Local Government Award went to Innisfil's Mayor Lynn Dolan, and wish her all the congratulations on this award. And on that, I am going to make the motion that we adjourn at 8:24, Your Worship.
I'm going to hold off. I apologize. I did skip that general information announcement. Council, any information announcement? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. You touched on it earlier. I just want to offer, mine and council's deepest condolences to our councillor Beatty, our colleague there, and to his entire family on the passing of R.K. Beatty. He was a former councillor and he was on the fire department for 40 plus years, a standing member of the community, a great pillar in our society. So all the best to Councillor Michael Beatty as he obviously goes through this extremely tough time. I wanted to say that. And then another announcement, Your Worship. I heard today that you achieved another milestone in your political career, and if it's okay with you, may I announce that?
Sure.
His Worship is now the president of the OSUM, Ontario Small Urban Municipalities. Congratulations, Your Worship. That's quite a feat to achieve that, and I know it's a very sought-after position. So you're obviously very well respected by your colleagues, and I just want to commend you for that. Which also gives you a seat, I believe, on the AMO board.
Yes, it is.
So, which of course we're going to try and leverage that as best we can. So, I want to say congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. Now, Councillor Jeb, be resolved that the meeting adjourns at
8:26, Your Worship.
Great. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Your Worship, a 2-minute quick break. Would that be appropriate?
I think that's, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. We're into the committee of the whole now. At this time, confirmation of the agenda. I'll go to the clerk to identify any items to add or delete. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are no additions or deletions to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Then I look for a mover and a seconder that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting held on August 24, 2020 be confirmed and circulated. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Harrison McIntyre and Councillor McClellan. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. At this time, if you have a peculiar interest, you can claim it now or when the item comes up. I'll go to Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two conflicts of interest, CW52 and CW57.
Thank you. Councillor Japp.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think on CW15, I will declare until I can get confirmation from our Integrity Commissioner. I will declare on that. Family members own property close to this area, so.
Thank you. Councillor Noyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. CW 4.3. I just have a question regarding this.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else with a conflict of interest? All right. Identify items for separate discussion. Councillor Noyle, what was the again?
Sorry, CW 4.3.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
CW15, please.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. CW14, please.
CW14. Okay, Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. CW14 and CW15, please.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Jebb.
CW57, Your Worship.
There's too many people here.
Thank you. Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. 5.2 was pulled for conflict, but has it been pulled to speak to it by another member?
No.
No? Okay, well then I'll get my answer tomorrow on that. I just wanted to know the balance of the CIP. Thank you. The other two have been pulled, 1.4 and 1.5. Thank you.
What was the other two, Councillor Sainsbury?
Oh, they've both been pulled, and I'll just speak to them when it's my turn. 1.4 and 1.5. CW 1.4, 1.5.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. And Councillor Noyle, you want to add?
I believe we're going to do that when we go into closed session. I think that's the direction I got from the clerk. Is that correct?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. As I understand it, Councillor Noy's item will be discussed in closed session. However, it should in fact be added now, and the agenda should be amended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to, oops, sorry.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that. And a unanimous vote will be required of council to add an item to the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Noyle.
So I'll do that now, Your Worship.
Yes.
I'd like to put regarding the NTRC, the property regarding the NTRC, and it will be discussed in closed session.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, carried. Thank you. Councillor Harrison McIntyre?
Thank you, Mr. Worship. CW 3-1.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, please, to the clerk, with the adding of the property at the NTRC, is it appropriate I declare a conflict now, or do I wait till the item is voted on, please?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Deputy Mayor Norcross. Now would be the time to declare, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Then through to you, please, I'd like to declare on that item. Thank you.
Okay. So noted. Okay. Anyone else? All right. I'll go to clerk to summarize all items identified for separate discussion. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Worship. Item CW14, opening of schools and possible physical distancing challenges. Item CW15, request for a subcommittee of council and senior staff to explore opportunities for town-owned property at 25 Albert Street West and surrounding properties. Item CW31, 2019 Fire Department Annual Report. CW43, request for exemption from fence bylaw number 2007-100, 1 Whiteside Court, Alliston. CW52, Community Improvement Plan, Facade and Signage Improvement Grant, Building Permit Application Grant, and Upgrade to Building Code Grant Applications, 16 Victoria Street East in Alliston, Literacy Council of South Simcoe, care of Shira Harrison McIntyre, file number D18 CIP 0120. Item CW57, designation of under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act of Caldigan House, 2157 Adula Tecumseth Town Line. CS1, 5776, 11th line, New Tecumseth, related file number DEV 390. CS2, verbal report of the town solicitor, re-third line property. CS3, verbal report of the CAO, investing in Canada Infrastructure Program update, and item number CS4 that was added by Councillor Noy with regard to the NTRC lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and second that all items not identified for separate discussion be received and the recommendation therein be recommended to council for adoption. Mover and seconder, Councillor Noyle and Councillor Foster, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And the first one is CW14. And I have 3 speakers, Councillor McClellan, Councillor Lacey, and Councillor Sainsbury. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Something I'd like to, I don't know if we need to officially add this to the motion or if this could be included in looking at possible ways that we can help the school board. So both the Catholic and the public school board have, if they stay within 1 kilometer of the schools, then the kids don't need to get permission slips to leave school property. So they're allowed to go on little jaunts to the close by parks and whatnot. And it seems as though a lot of teachers are going to be looking at doing as much schooling as they possibly can outside to help with physical distancing in the schools. So I'm wondering if we can possibly add to the motion or look into maybe beefing up the picnic tables that we have in the local parks that are 1 kilometer away from the schools, to maybe give the kids somewhere to sit, because I suspect that that the parks closely surrounding the schools will be utilized a lot during the first couple of months of school. And something else that was brought to my attention was some of the other districts are actually designating some of the park time during the day for school children. Now, it's not something that's bylaw enforced, but it's something that they put out to the community to ask, if they could, leave the parks open for the school kids during the day. So I thought beefing up our picnic tables at the park and possibly looking into the parks that are closely surrounding the schools, sort of designating most of the school day for the school-age children, because like I said, they're going to be trying to do a lot of outdoor play and outdoor work to help with the physical distancing. Thank you.
Director Burton, did you wish to comment?
Through you, Mayor Mellon, no, I have nothing really to add to it. I guess just one point of clarification in the terms of beefing up. Do you mean like quantity or physical structure?
Councillor McClellan?
Sorry, thank you. I'll clarify. Just adding a few more picnic tables to the park so the kids have somewhere to sit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lacey?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add on to what Councillor McClellan has said. We also have the conservation area available to us, and Coventry Park. I know Coventry Park has a lot of picnic tables and so on. So, I mean, maybe a little bit of shuffling around with our outdoor facilities, in addition to the indoor facilities at the Tottenham Community Center and the NTRC, as well as the Beaton Arena, would probably really help out our school boards and the social distancing.
Thank you. Councillor Sainsbury?
Thank you, Worship. My concern was using the indoor spaces, because we're going to have to space our own staff around somewhere. I think they're not all going to fit in the building that they're in on Church Street South to do business. And about the cleaning, is the school board going to pay to clean the areas? And because it's children using our facilities, is it joint liability between the town and the school board should some children contract COVID-19? So I was just wondering where we thought we could put these people.
Okay.
Because of the distancing.
I'll direct this question to the CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Question on where to put people. Seems to be a question for the last number of months, but Councillor Sainsbury, in response to your question, I really think what Deputy Mayor Norcross is trying to do is just offer, and certainly with the addition of Councillor McClellan and Councillor Lacey's comments, is just offer a helping hand to the school boards and see where we can help out, if any. Certainly when it comes to interior space, our concern would be very similar to the concerns that you've identified with respect to cleaning and sanitizing. What we would probably look to do is clearly define what area, interior area anyways, that the school board would be utilizing, so that they would have full control over that space, and we would keep that space separate from any other town-related activities, so that we could certainly limit the risk of any spread of any diseases or viruses or anything like that. So that's what we would probably look to do. But again, I think just the reaching out to the school board, offering a lending hand and see what we can do. I think the idea of outdoor spaces and creating almost outdoor classrooms for learning is a wonderful idea. And I think we can certainly try to pool some of our picnic table resources and things like that to assist the school board in that way, if that's amenable to them.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Harrison McIntyre? Nope. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. CEO, you answered it better than I could have, to be quite honest with you. So I want to thank you for that. And you're right, it's just reaching out to offer a helping hand to the school boards when as the children go back to school, to see if there are any things that we can do to help. We have a lot of outdoor spaces. I know we have a lot of picnic tables that we use for events, and basically saying to them, and basically putting the ball in their court, is we're here to help you. What can we do to help you? And see what they take us up on. So I just want to thank council for supporting this, because I think it's important. And like the CAO said, I'm not sure what the school board will ask from us, but certainly trying to work collaboratively together, I think is a great step going forward. So thank you, Your Worship.
Good, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll look for a mover and second for the motion. Councillor McClellan, and Councillor Jeff. Whereas the schools have not been, open since March due to the COVID-19, but will be open in September as per the direction issued by the Minister of Education as part of the province reopening Ontario Act 2020 and approved by the Office of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. And whereas physical distance in the schools will need to be practiced in accordance with the provincial public health restriction and instructions, which may be a challenge for the school if there is limited space available. Now, therefore, be resolved that the staff be directed to contact the school boards to see if they require additional space to meet physical distance requirements, and if so, the staff work with the school boards to determine if and or how the town may be able to assist with any space challenging our requirements they may have due to their physical distance requirement. Any further questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. CW15, Councillor Jebb is conflict of interest. Oh, okay, thank you. So we have Councillor Foster, Councillor Lacey, and Councillor Sainsbury wishing to speak. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. If I could just direct one question through you to the clerk quickly before I start. To the clerk, you saw that the motion will be slightly reworded. Would you like me just to read it at the end of my short presentation? Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mayor Milne. I would like to provide the background which has resulted in the member's motion, which will be up for discussion shortly. I would like to clarify a couple of important points. One, I am one of a group of 10 residents that make up your council. One of our primary goals is to ensure that taxpayers receive the best value for their tax dollar. Value being defined not just monetarily. Two, any discussions that I have had personally with anyone related to what I am speaking about offered no promises, negotiations or otherwise. Conversations simply centered around a willingness to further discuss possibilities subject to council's desire. Lastly, what I present is an opportunity for this council to see my particular vision at a very high level and decide if it merits further investigation. I believe the clerk has a screenshot, if I could.
Yes.
Thank you very kindly. If you look at the screen, you will see the 25 Albert Street property and the additional town-owned lands from the Memorial Arena, Cenotaph, and south from Cupper Street West through to the Ball Diamonds on the south end of the property. Gibson owned lands from their head office on Church Street to the lands winding their way north with frontage on Cupper Street West. Gibson Cultural Center lands in red, and Chickadance owned lands directly west and south of the Gibson Center. All adjacent property owners related to this vision have been contacted and have at the very basic expressed a willingness to listen should council decide that something that I have to say is an appropriate path. I will get ahead of the question before somebody asks it, and that is, why would I look into this? The answer is simple. There's a very reasonable possibility that with enough effort, taxpayers will see value and benefits, which is clearly our mandate as elected officials. I believe, personally, 25 Albert Street property should be maintained as town-owned property. Its primary use should not necessarily be an administration center. Rather, it should be used for outdoor recreational space for existing and future resident use. While our opinions can vary, and they usually do, hopefully we can all agree that property such as this in this location has the potential to add significant quality of life value to all taxpayers. Administration needs must be addressed through the possibility of lot line or boundary adjustments with adjacent properties. The possibilities begin to open up. I have barely begun to scratch the surface. This is simply high level. With the support of council, I will present a more detailed vision for council to deliberate prior to October 19th. And my last comment, if I could, before I read the motion, is that an interesting addition to all this is infrastructure funding, which my fellow councilors are aware of, has come available for certain aspects of a project the size that might be compatible as well. So with that, I'll read the motion. Be it resolved that the mayor, Councillor Foster, and 2 members of senior staff work to capture Councillor Foster's vision for opportunities for the town-owned property at 25 Albert Street West and surrounding properties, fronting on or abutting Tupper Street West, Church Street, and Kerr Boulevard. And further, that the subcommittee bring a report back to Committee of the Whole no later than October 19th, 2020, as part of Council's 2021 business planning for Council's deliberation.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to say a couple of things, and I think the first thing I want to say is about COVID, and the last few months have presented a number of challenges to us, as well as some lessons. And one of those lessons, I believe, is putting all of our people in a single location could be fraught with disaster. So if we change 25 Albert Street into an admin center, we build a large admin center, and something like COVID, we get a breakout in the admin center, it could literally shut down our entire services in town. We've also learned that, we can work diversified from home, from various locations, and work very effectively as a town and as a group. So, the land is a very valuable piece of land that I do believe that the town and the people should continue to own. And I'd like to thank Councillor Foster for bringing this motion forward to see what we can do as a council to make the most value out of that for our people. So thank you very much, Councillor Foster.
Thank you. The next speaker was Councillor Sainsbury.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I just think that when we have the report come back, it's very time consuming. We will all like to have a turn to speak to it because it's a very large plan. And I would like to see it at a working session, either in the morning from 9 till 11 or in the evening from 7 to 9 when council's not sitting. I think that we could do a lot better job if we do it that way rather than on the screen. It's very difficult to see the cards and who wishes to speak, and we can have more dialogue. Even if we go to the upper level of the Allison Memorial Arena, we can go around the periphery of the room and have tables and be 12 feet apart. All we need is a microphone and the staff. It's not a lot of people, and that is a very big space. We can wear a mask if we have to.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Noyle, and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Foster for doing the legwork on this. It's a very interesting project, and I think it will benefit the residents of our town. It's worth looking into, and I'd love to be a part of the committee if I could, but I'm sure there's other people in mind. I have no idea, but thank you, Councillor Foster, for all the hard work you've done.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to second Councillor Foster's motion that he's put forward. And you know what? I think it's great that he's done this, and I think it's a great opportunity to give Councillor Foster and yourself an opportunity to articulate the vision that Councillor Foster's been working on for this, and to bring it forward and bring all the details to council, so that collectively, and as Councillor Foster said, there'll be 10 of us making the decision, so that we can come together and make a very informed decision going forward. And I just want to say, Councillor Foster, thank you for taking the initiative on doing this. I certainly support it, and I look forward to the report that's coming back. And like the other council members have said, thank you for your hard work. It's greatly appreciated. So, Your Worship, with council's pleasure, I would certainly second the motion to get on the floor and see if it passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sainsbury, last question.
Yeah, supplementary, Your Worship. Thank you. I don't know if we should use the word visioning because I'd have to go through you to the CAO or the clerk. when we start doing visioning, then I think you have to hold public information meetings or public meetings or whatever. So this is going to be very time consuming. And to me, time is of the essence. We need a town office where people can come to do business, have a chair to sit on and a microphone that works. And everyone's in the same room hearing the same thing at the same time. And COVID will go away. We're planning for the future, and the future now with the new comprehensive review and the provincial government is taking us till 2050. We were just having a time frame of 2031. Well, then that went to 2041. Now it's gone to 2050. All be long gone. But I really think it's a worthwhile exercise. But I think I would like the word visioning explained.
All right, I'll go to the CEO in regards to the word vision.
Mayor Milne, through you to Councillor Sainsbury and members of council, to the best of my knowledge, utilizing the word vision does not require a public input or public information session. If council wants to use the word visioning session with this type of project, I don't see any harm in that.
Okay, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. If it pleases anybody, and I would be more than happy to substitute vision for idea or any other word that may be the choosing of Councillor Sainsbury that gets the idea across. That's simply what it is an idea. So I'm not opposed to picking on words.
Okay, then, thank you. Everyone's had an opportunity, and I'll call the motion. All in favor? Opposed?
I'm here.
Okay, motion's carried. Thank you. CW3, Councillor Harrison McIntyre. CW3-1.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just bringing to the public's awareness that in 2019, Tecumseth was awarded the Superior Tanker Shuttle reaccreditation. This gives the department the ability to maintain a constant supply of water to the rural areas of our municipality. And so this is the part that's interesting for the public, is that this accreditation provides the rural residents located within 8 kilometers and commercial properties located within 5 kilometers of the fire station the opportunity to review their insurance rates with their brokers companies to review insurance rates. So go at it. Try and get a reduction if you can.
Good luck.
Everybody helps.
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, looking for a seconder. Councillor Jebb, that report of fire 2020-002 be received. All in favor? Good, thank you. Thank you. The next one is CW43, Councillor Noyle.
I'd like to withdraw my comments, please.
Thank you. The next one is CW52, and Councillor Harrison McIntyre is a conflict, but Councillor Sainsbury wishes to speak. Councillor Sainsbury?
Yes, my question. I'm sorry, Your Worship, did you acknowledge me? I didn't catch who you called.
Yes, I did.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to know what was left in the CIP fund when we proceed with this for the year 2020, because I think some money has been spent.
C. Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Through you to Councillor Sainsbury, perhaps Mr. Schilling could address that question for us from our planning area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sainsbury. Thanks for the question. The report does, in fact, get into some of the financial details with respect to the budget and the CIP program for this year. As Council might recall, a portion of the budget was reallocated to try and assist with some COVID recovery efforts. But in the end, should Council approve the grant tonight in the amount of $30,025.75, there'd be a balance in the grant account of $7,474.25. You can find that on page 5 of the report.
Page 5, but that's the upgrade for the building code.
Well, sorry, pardon me, through your worship, Councillor Sainsbury, the financial considerations start on page 4, and then there is it carried forward through to page 5.
So there is some, okay, there is some money left then, all right. I was looking at the page for where we were sharing the grant with the applicant. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Mill. Through you, I think it's fantastic that people are taking the incentive to clean up the building, and the drawings look great, and the lighting and the facade improvements will look excellent. I just have one question. In the four different sections under signage, building permit fee grant, upgraded building code grants, all the different categories, the building permit fee grant is $5,000. I see the two, quote, Silver Crest and Ultimate Construction. In the Silver Crest quote, it refers to the following items are not included: permits, engineering, winter heater protection, dewatering, work outside of normal hours. And under the Ultimate Construction quote, I believe that it only shows $1,800 in permits. I'm just curious, just want to make sure that we're in line with the $5,000 permit fee grant and where that number came from. That would be my only question, just a point of clarification.
Tim?
Through your worship to Councillor Foster, I can handle this question. So 5,000 is the maximum allowable grant to be received under the building code grant, or sorry, the building permit application grant. It's 100% cost recoverable to the maximum of $5,000. I believe the request from the applicant was just to obtain the maximum amount. Certainly if it came in less, when the building permit applications do come in, that's when they'll know their fees. Like typically, the building permit application comes in once the grant's approved, and then they can apply for their works, and then we'll know the true value of their actual building permit application. So it may not be detailed exactly in the quote. So I believe they've just requested the maximum amount of 5,000, and then that would be the maximum they'd be eligible with. So hypothetically, if their building permit application fees were $1,000, they would only get $1,000 of the 5,000 that they requested, if I am making myself clear.
Okay.
That's
supplementary.
Supplementary. Thank you. You're making yourself clear. So as long as the motion details that the approval, pending approval by council, is that the fees are recoverable up to $5,000, but the fees will, that number, the $5,000 will be established at the issuance of building permits. Am I hearing you correctly?
Mr. Abbott?
Through your worship to Councillor Foster, yes, that's correct. We've done this in the past where they've requested an amount, and in small instances, sometimes the works comes back less expensive than anticipated, and usually we would just issue them the amount that they're eligible. They wouldn't receive the full amount. It's still subject to the terms and conditions in the community improvement plan.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, look for a mover and a seconder. That report of PD 2020-24 be received, and further that a bylaw be enacted to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a community improvement plan grant funding agreement with the property owners of Literacy Council of South Simcoe, care of Shira Harrison McIntyre, subject to the town solicitor's final clearance. And further that the following execution of the agreement in the amount of $30,025.75 be transferred into a community improvement plan reserve to be further transferred to the applicant as per the terms of agreement. Moved by Councillor Sainsbury, second by Councillor Jebb. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Your worship?
Yes.
Do we have to make a motion for that CW4-3? Councillor Noy had pulled, but yeah.
I'm looking at the clerk and she's shaking her head east to west, so I'd say no.
Okay.
All right, next one is CW5, and Councillor Jeb. Councillor Harrison McIntyre has a conflict. Councillor Jeb wishes.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just really pleased, being a member of the Heritage Committee for several years. I'd like to thank the property owner and all the staff that have worked on this application. And it has been a work in progress. And over the years, our Heritage Committee, formerly LACAC, we would see homes being recognized or designated, and it kind of got stalled, and COVID certainly doesn't help, but it certainly does bring attention to the fact that people are interested in having their homes recognized. And this home in particular, it's got a good history to it. And it's funny because the new residents coming into our community, we all know the history, but they don't know the history. So it's kind of nice to have that, and we can share it with them. So on that, I would like to make the motion. According to the report, we accept the report and move forward.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor McClellan, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Look for a mover and second at the committee of the whole convenes in the closed session at Councillor Chubb.
9:08, Your Worship.
To discuss 4 matters. Item CS1, 5776, 11th line of New Tecumseth. Item CS2, verbal report of the town solicitor of the 3rd line property. Item CS3, a verbal report of the CAO, and also CS4 and CRY from Councillor Noel. All in favor? Thank you.